Hi. Today I'm reading lesson 6 of Making It Big by Femi Otedola. So, I have been inconsistent for the past 8 days, and I really want to slap myself. I don't know how that happened, but we go again. So the thing is, I'm studying and I had to read for my exams, which is happening tomorrow. But let's read. Let's pause and read Making It Big by Femi Otedola. Yeah, that's what I said to myself today. Let me read. I've missed 8 chapters. I've missed 8 days. So I'm going to try to catch up. Maybe read 4 chapters tonight. And by tomorrow, I'll be done reading another 4 chapters. Lesson 6, know your markets. Our parents advise us to be thrifty and save when we start earning income. They tell us we should own property as soon as we can. They drum it into our heads that as a starting point, we should build a house for ourselves. They emphasize the significance of acquiring as much property as one can manage. Wherever there is a favorable real estate market, they always stress that the best investment, the most rewarding legacy apart from a cherished name and good breeding, is to leave property as an inheritance. They warn against living large, splurging on frivolities, and chasing excessive pleasures. They always admonish us to live a simple, far below our means, with warnings such as don't eat with 10 fingers. I took all this to heart. I did not go crazy with owning property. I learned about some aspects of the market early. I supervised building projects for my father. This was an education for me. My dad opened my eyes to in three cases of construction. He filled me in on the ploys and tricks of the type of contractor who flexes his clients. He called them Baba Mukaila. He described the bricklayers, Baba Mukailas, with their white skull caps and agri cigarettes as a necessary evil, because in the end they would deliver the goods despite the tricky and deceit. Drama was never in short supply in the building trade. I had a little construction experience when I embarked on my personal house build. When I bought a plot of land on the street named for my father in 1996, a former employee of the G Kappa Construction Company headed up the queue. The architect, Stephen Bola Oladele, was introduced to me by a friend. Tunde Oladele had designed his father's Queen's Drive mansion. The decision to spend extra to ensure a quality dwelling saved me a lot of headache and heartache. In 2000, when I relocated to a rented duplex on Victoria, I sold the house, which had built for 11 million. I sold it for 40 million. As noted, that move cut my commute time and strategically positioned me closer to the captains of finance. As fortune smiled on Xenon, diversification was next. Build a property portfolio came to me as natural as breathing. Nobody prods you to start investing in property. It comes with the territory when you have extra income. As I have said, we thought not to keep all our money in the banks, but to spread the risk across different sectors and portfolios. Friends and associates were constantly bombarding me with tips on the lands and buildings for sale. As they explained how lucrative real estate had become, Nigeria was experiencing an economic boom and population swelled in the cities like Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt as Nigerian expatriates returned on jobs in Europe and North America. There was also an surge in the middle class. After getting a good education, the upwardly mobile filled the ranks of well-paying jobs as startups blossomed. My friends were heavily into real estate, building high-rises that were bursting with luxury apartments for rent or sale. My acquaintance, Alinko Dangote, Tayo Amusan, and Bukola Saraki, were all getting rich off the go real estate sector of the Obasanjo years. They were pulling in a huge rent and profits from sales. It was predictable the next step for me. As a younger man, I had adored my friend Tunde's father, Wahab Fola. I was enamored of his portfolio of beautiful houses in Apapa neighborhood. I had a good fortune of interacting directly with this man, who was worthy of the Monica Baba Adini, an exalted chiefly title. He advised me to diversify into real estate, and I decided to build luxury flats in the best sections of Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. There was high demand for exclusive apartments selling for $2 million or more in the poshest parts of the town. That niche market, that's the super luxury space, was my target. The mantra in real estate has always been location. In Lagos, the hotspots were Ikoyi and Victoria Island. In Abuja, it had to be Maitama. Port Harcourt was a different case. There, I bought a property that had been fortified to AFCC by the previous owners. Apart from the fact that the choices of locations attracted the highest one, the next thing was not to compromise on elegance. My target market was the cream of the expert crop and executive with executive tastes, who were ready to pay for top-notch parts with luxury finishing and furnishings. I hired CG Dixon. I hired CG Dosinko Partnership, one of Nigeria's famous architectural firms, for the design. For construction, I turned to Kappa and Albato, an old Nigerian construction company founded by Italian immigrants in 1932. I trusted them, knowing they did deliver the first-class buildings, I wouldn't be disappointed. Once a building in a good location passed the luxury and functional test, the rest was easy. Clients lined up with their wallets in their hands. My business model for apartment sales had a fully furnished flat for 80 million. On the rental side, an annual apartment lease would be 16 million naira, 16.7 million naira, which was equivalent to $100,000 at that time. In 5 years, I did basically make my money back with a total income of 83.35 million. Meanwhile, I owned the building essentially free and clear, and because I did pay for the first phase construction and outfitting, it required minimal maintenance or renovation. Subsequent rents would be straight up front. I founded a property company, FO Properties, to exploit this market. At our zenith, we had 150 flats and offices complexes, and they were all occupied. In Lagos, they range from Wando building, a twin block of 14 floors on Ajose Adiogo Street, to apartments on Copper Road, Temple Road, Bayo Kuku Road, and Agodagba Avenue in Parkview, and several others. There were similar nice residential and commercial spaces in Abuja and Port Harcourt. The property business in those days was sweet indeed, but times have changed. The Nigerian market is a different story all these years later. Today, you need more than 35 years to recoup your cost, and with a glut of properties and uncertain global economy, deep-pocketed tenants has disappeared, leaving some of the buildings with just 25% occupant. Rental flats go for as little as $10,000 a year. I exited the market after I fortified my holdings during the crippling recession of 2008, and my 220 billion debt relief agreement with APCON. There are lessons to be learned from my experience in real estate. To succeed in the high-end property game, I recommend focusing exclusively on quiet, posh location, insisting on beautiful architect, and being willing to pay for the first-class construction. With top-of-the-line deco in my case, and among my friends who went big in real estate development, this proved to be a master stroke, although the favorable economic environment of the time was instrumental in our success. If you want to succeed, you must know the market you choose to play in like the back of your hand. The dynamics of the sector should be your preoccupation 24/7. If you don't stay on top of things, you will struggle. These are my takes on making the most of any venture in real estate. Knowledge is the best starting point. Before you make any move into any sector, before starting any enterprise, begin by learning as much as you can about it. That certainly helps me in real estate business with FO Properties. And although I did not start Zeno with a formal feasible study, I had a fair idea of a local fuel oil market. A few things were clear. Diesel was in high demand and in short supply. As detailed earlier, my own experience spotlighted the gaps. I had to move my family into a hotel because there was no diesel to power our home generators. It then took 5 days after I had paid for my supply to finally deliver, and a broken down old truck leaked fuel onto my yard. As soon as I decided to get into this business, clean it up and make diesel supply less cumbersome, I started calling insiders and consulting them. That led to the realization that the entire country depended on diesel, and this colossal market was woefully undeserved. After I started Zeno, I came to learn that all the textile factories sprawling across the Ilupeju, Aswani, Apapa, and Oshodi neighborhoods of Lagos lived on diesel, and the most of the other prominent manufacturing concerns which needed their factories operational 24/7 had a similar dependence. With the government monopoly unable to fill the need, the magnitude of the opportunity became apparent. The entire country was hungry for diesel to power homes, offices, factories, miles, and fishing trawlers, as well as every sort of vehicle and heavy-duty equipment. That fired my passion. Knowledge gives you an edge. I quickly found out who had diesel to sell. It was the middleman who offloaded in bulk, who didn't get down into the nitty-gritty. Number 2, of delivering to end users. They didn't want the headache of logistics, buying vans or drums, or investing in storage tanks. Many were content to look for bulk buyers, honest and trustworthy customers with cash to sell their allocation to and pocket the commission, and that buyer was me. All the hawkers of the allocation papers needed was a connection in the NNPC, be it a girlfriend or an uncle or someone with ties to the Presidential Villa or the National Assembly. I learned who wanted to sell allocation papers and who, like Obat Oil and Petroleum, had the product in their tanks ready for me to buy on a retail basis in one field swap. Sometimes I would buy from importers like First Fuel Abdul Rahman Abdul Razak, who at that time of this writing is governor of Kwara State. I was lucky to buy large quantities of diesel from him, and he gave me generous discount. There were only 2 independent retailers apart from the majors. They were Flame Petroleum, which I mentioned earlier, and C Petroleum, owned by Senator Stella Udwa. Knowing where to buy allocation or bulk retail and cultivating a warm relationship with my suppliers and rivals provided the edge that helped me become a prominent player. Number 3, knowledge affords you a more precise, long-focused vision. As the weeks rolled into months and years, I became a keen student of one of the diesel sector. This understanding of the markets and knowledge of my competition helped clarify my vision. When I started selling to individual homes out of drums, my father was my first customer. I delivered 10 200-liter drums to his house in the Odorugun Seaward in the town of Epe. Suffice it to say, the humble early days of riding in the van have described set the stage for so much more. I learned the language of trade and metrics. If the volume of truck carried 33,000 liters, I used to tell myself that one day I would have 33 million, and then 33 billion, and then 330 billion, and eventually 3.3 trillion. I played around with the figures. I'm amusing myself with endless multiplies of the number 33. From the earliest days of Xenon, I knew it was a business that required close attention. Though still a novice, hauling 2 drums in the back of the van, I was ready to figure it out and put in the hard work. I learned the process and procedures, such as where to register the business and how to get the license from the DPR, the industry regulators, Number 4, knowledge saves you resources and time. Being knowledgeable is essential in order to know where to reliably get whatever you need at the best price. It was easy to make 200% profit if you knew where to buy. Diesel was then 12 naira per liter, and we were able to sell as high as 25 or 30. Being grounded in the business further opened my eyes. After buying from Firstware, I learned that Tony Onu of Uafric with a depot at Ibakim that belonged to Mamiemo Ibro also sold bulk retail. I started buying from him too. An entrepreneur must be familiar with the wide range of supply sources to get the best bargain. It pays to know about market capacity, such as how much customers are consuming in aggregates, the low and high seasons, and much more. I met people in our industry who didn't know about 1,664 liters of oil make a ton, which was the capacity of shiploads. Conversely, you needed to be able to divide the tonnage by 1,164 to get a number of liters in each shipment and work through a series of other calculations from there. That was necessary to factor out what you did be paying your subsequent markup, how many customers you did be able to service with that load, the profit you did make, and so forth. That was the heartbeat of your business. I learned that sales were high during the Christmas period because households kept their generators running and many people traveled across the country at the time of in diesel-powered buses. During the rainy season, demand was low because public power often improved with better performance from the hydro stations, which stabilized electric power generation. The knowledge I acquired over also led me to realize tremendous efficiency, saving, and profitability as I acquired 4 ships in quick succession. This included MT Sir Michael, 8,500 tons, MT Lady Doja, 17,200 tons, a flat bottom crab that was one of only 5 in the world, with the advantage of berthing in shallow waters, MT Nana, 22,000 tons, and MT Zenon Conquest, 10,300 tons. They all fired diesel from larger tankers that could not berth at the port. Understanding the market and my competition gave me the insight into when to empty and when to fill tanks and ships and when to sell. People paid in advance, and at one point I had 2 billion from depositors awaiting diesel. They like to settle in advance because it was first to pay, first to load proposition. I have built a reputation for trust, so people were confident that they did get their products as agreed. With the first come, first serve promise, I was also giving them an attractive incentive to engage, pay, and come back again. Use today's issues as inspiration for tomorrow's expansion. The expansion of the business started with trucks, but we still grappled with irregular supply from tank farms and those pending allocations. And only 2 companies always had diesel, Maka and Webico, an oil and gas firm originally founded to provide a star-like petroleum derivative, bitumen, for road construction. But Webico, whose primary focus was not diesel, only had storage capacity for 5,000 tons, which wasn't a reliable a source at Maka, which could stockpile 20,000 tons. Many of the suppliers stopped a big game but dragged their feet in providing the goods. After collecting money for an essential commodity that was in high demand, delays often up to 4 weeks stemmed from low turnover by the NNPC since the troubled refineries were shut down and the national oil monopoly had to import. Once you gave them a bank draft of their cashiers check, they would confirm. They promptly loaded your product in just one 2-month period. I did 600 million in business with them. As described earlier, a seemingly trusted provider lets me down at a crucial moment when they wouldn't take a personal check after the banks had closed for the day. That caused me to lose the order for nearly 20 million. After that, I knew I could no longer depend on bulk suppliers. I couldn't continue to rely on this predictable model. How could I subject myself to the whims and caprice of unreliable dealers? That led me to building the storage tanks I have detailed previously. How to know your market and competition. There are well-tested ways of knowing your market and competition, which vary by sector. For the segment I have engaged in, apart from the stock market, finance, petroleum, property, and power, here are the methodologies I relied on. 1, study the basics and learn how things work. As soon as I entered the diesel market in 1999, its vast and lucrative nature was immediately apparent. It was clear to me that this was something I did be involved in for a long time, potentially expanding into sales, transport, and storage. And when the opportunities presented by the regulation became clear, I began importing and layered on a trading company, shipping agency, and insurance brokerage firm. 2, invest in information and intelligence gathering. News and gossip travel fast. And if you know where to go and who to cut, you can catch wind of some incredible valuable information for your business. I was friends with my bankers and those who operated in the supply and distribution chain. I regularly interacted with tanker drivers at the depot. And essentially, everybody else assisted with the various aspects of my business, and they all had useful information. Knew Jean-Claude Meyer's cancer was not widely known at first because he did been abroad for about 3 years, but eventually filtered into town. His company, Maka International, controlled the market. We did have our ups and downs. He was an early supplier who helped me get my business going, but we also clashed at times. When he passed away at the age of 47, his death created a vacuum. His son, Olivia, who stepped into manage the business, wasn't interested in the oil industry. I sensed that if I offered him the right price, he would sell. Maka's depot built for 300 million was then worth 800 million. I offered him 2.8 million. The offer was too good to be true, and Olivia thought it was a joke. He took out pen and paper, scribbled out 2.8 billion, and sat there counting the zeros. Market intelligence had made me confident that he would say. I did also learn over the years that if any offer is high enough, people are willing to sell pretty much anything. Olivia Maya gladly accepted my offer, and I bought the Market International Depot with financing from Zenith Bank and with the subsequent support from Intercontinental Bank. Number 3, expert insight can set you on the path of greater success. When Zeno collapsed and I needed to start again by reconstructing AP PLC, it was clear that I had to engage an expert. I needed the advice, counsel, and guidance of a veteran in the oil sector. The brief was simple and straightforward. I wanted to basically sack myself, rebrand, start from scratch, and do it right. Who did I choose? Olumide Onakoya, who had for years been the MD of Mobile Downstream Operation in Nigeria. He did be responsible for everything that happened between oil and gas production and the point of sale, and he went to work detailing what he needed to start anew. He was surprised I was ready to pay 7 billion in severance packages to my old staff, but I knew what I wanted. He charged me 100 million for his services, and I was more than willing to pay because I knew how invaluable his expertise would be, and it proved to be just that. From December 2010, when we rebranded as 40 Oil PLC, until the company's sale in 2019, we ran a professional and hugely profitable enterprise. From there on out, it was only about market research, strategy, and competent decision making. We didn't even consider binding on the purchase of Gerugu Power PLC in 2008 until the experts we engaged for $13 million in research and consulting fees had rigorously examined what we should buy and the terms of any sale. Acquiring the 414 megawatts electrical power generator in South Central Nigeria, Kogi State, has paid off handsomely. Number 4, study finance report of public companies and follow their activities. Back then, publicly quoted companies were required to publish their quarterly finance statements in newspaper. In addition to their annual profit and loss reporting, this public disclosure allowed me to learn all I needed to know about the oil sector and its top players. My major competitors, Total, Mobil, Texaco, Con Oil, and Wando, released their financial statement, and I studied them to see where the market was headed. I read the before and after tax profit details and scrutinized gross income and losses. To track the performance of bank, my friend Shogun at GT Bank showed me how to look for interest income when reading their financial statement. That is where they make money. CNBC, Bloomberg, and other businesses media also provided essential insights into what everyone was doing, good, bad, and otherwise. Dedicating time to following developments in the business world and scanning the horizon for what's lay ahead opened my eyes to how the top dogs play the game. Number 5, keep an eye on the stock market. Daily monitoring of companies' share prices presented a clear view of their strengths and weaknesses, and over time, one could deduce whether they were on the path of profitability or loss. Takeaways from chapter 6, lesson 6. If you do not know your market and the competition, your business will soon be history. You cannot survive if you don't grab the basic. That is the starting point. Knowing where the sector is heading and spotting the opportunities allows you to enjoy the benefits. You can see clearly and plan well when you understand the language, terminology, and the metrics of the business. You stay abreast of what is happening and take advantage of the circumstances. With concerted intelligence gathering, you have an edge over others because you know what they are all up to. This allows you to get a leg up on the competition. Expert knowledge saves you time, energy, and money in the long run. Experts provide a long-term view of possibilities to help your decision-making. Publish financial reports, share prices, and company and sector news will sharpen your business acumen and help you anticipate development. Nonetheless, a lot of short-term movements in the market is emotion-driven, and I fell victim to that. I bought shares based on relationships and continued to hold on to them when I should have sold. I paid dearly for my hesitation. As the pros do, I should have simply set a target of doubling my investment and exited while the going was good. That's the end of lesson 6. Continue.